Hi everyone, so it's time for our Titanfall review. Now, the first thing to say is we've been playing this game on both Xbox One and on the PC. Having pretty much unlocked all of the guns, Titans, played through the campaign, all of that kind of jive, we're ready to kind of give you our full thoughts. Now, the most important thing to note here is there is some significant technical differences between the Xbox One and the PC. For starters, the Xbox One frame rate is not consistent. Now, we'll get that out the way straight away because the gameplay on both systems is exemplary. But if you're looking for the one that gives the most consistent performance and you have a medium quality PC, then the PC edition is definitely the definitive edition right now. That may very well change over time as Microsoft and Rebellion get things sorted out with the performance of the Xbox One, but I'm afraid at the moment if I had to pick a platform, it would be the PC. So let's talk about the gameplay here, because ultimately this is a game that is really designed to kind of take over from Call of Duty. It's designed for that crowd, those people who are looking for that instant, aggressive, first-person shooter action. You know, all go, no pauses between deaths particularly, just constant ram. And it works beautifully well here. You have to understand that there are, multiple types of shooters and they all approach their kind of subject matter slightly differently, providing a different kind of twist on the gameplay. Titanfall is certainly no different. In fact, in some respects, it's a massive departure from what we've had before, in a really good way. However, when you look and consider the value for money proposition from what Titanfall is delivering, I'm afraid it doesn't appear to be very good value for money on Xbox One, and it's only borderline value for money as a PC title, retailing at around, EA want £44 I think for the PC edition of the game. You can ultimately pick it up on CD key sites for around about £25 to £27. That feels closer to what this game is actually worth. There is a very slim amount of content here when you kind of consider battlefields and the CODs of the world. Very few guns, although the guns are really nice and well balanced and they have a real meaty feel when you're using them. There's not a lot of them. Likewise, the maps are interesting, some of them, but others are frankly very badly designed and pretty dull actually. Overall, I would say around 50% of the maps are absolutely top-notch and amongst some of the best designed maps I have ever played on. But likewise, there's quite a bit of dross in there as well. And again, this is nothing new, I suppose, from a first-person shooting point of view. In Call of Duty, we're quite used to having a couple of maps that are absolutely fantastic and others that you think, I could take it or leave it. Where Titanfall really excels is in the new twist it's added through burn cards. This really changes the dynamic of matches and throws in some real chaos. These burn cards effectively take over from the kind of streaks and support packages you would receive in Call of Duty, Battlefield, etc. And effectively you can use one of these cards each time you die. You can have a maximum number of active cards, and you have to choose carefully which cards you're going to take into an individual match. At the end of the match, you can use some new cards. And ultimately, this throws in a kind of a hand grenade right at the beginning of matches, or as a little twist halfway through, and very much playing into your playstyle. So for instance, after your first death, you could quite happily drop an Ogre Titan in. Now, if you do that very early on in the match, you can cause a huge amount of disruption as everyone else is desperately still trying to get their Titans ready. That dynamic change creates absolute chaos. You never know what you're going to get during the first few minutes of gameplay. That, for my mind, takes that first 4 minutes from something of got to go and kill loads of AI or try and find something to earn some points, into going to have to be a little bit careful here, especially as people have kind of played through the game, opened up the weaponry, obviously picked up a lot of burn cards as well. It's working really well. Now, the AI. This is a particularly vexing area, I think, for this particular game. The AI works. Conceptually, it's really clever, but I still question whether it's actually necessary. Whether actually having different designed maps, maybe with more players, would actually have served the same purpose. Now, we can debate whether there's some limitations here that were imposed from the Xbox One, or whether they made a design decision very early on to have a much lower player count. But ultimately, the use of the AI just feels to me kind of unnecessary. It doesn't necessarily need to be there. Whilst it doesn't impact negatively in the way the game plays, in fact obviously it adds some positive elements there, it never really felt like there was an immersion to the use of the AI and my character's involvement in the world. And that was a really strange thing. At no point did I kind of think, yeah, I'm going to save these AI guys. You know, if you've been playing kind of single player campaigns, or even, you know, some of the more advanced multiplayer campaigns where you have AI there, it feels like they're kind of part of this world fighting with you and alongside you. I just didn't quite get that immersive feel from the AI in Titanfall. Now, in part that might be because of the lack of a single-player campaign. There's not really what you would describe as a single-player game here at all. It's all multiplayer, it's all online. But there is a multiplayer campaign, which effectively is a series of the maps tied together with a 15-second narration between each map and a couple of seconds at most of new animation that kind of helps to set the scene as you start each match. But the problem is it feels very weak, and in fact it really feels like, well, they couldn't even be bothered with this particular aspect of the game. It felt like it had to be there. Originally they probably weren't going to bother. The voice acting is dire. I mean, it really is flat and weak in a lot of places. And overall, it kind of breaks the immersion. I think they'd have been better off just going, hey guys, look, this is a multiplayer game. There's some maps, there's some guns, go have fun. By attempting to have a multiplayer campaign there with a story, and forcing you effectively to play through this weak story in order to unlock 2 of the Titans, 1 for each of the factions, it's just dull. And it breaks the immersion of Titanfall. Like I say, if it had been properly executed, I think it would have been a great introduction to how this world operates and the feeling of the AI, but ultimately it falls short. It feels not only rushed, but ultimately superficial, and that's a real shame. For Titanfall 2, they have to get a single-player campaign in there in some way. Even if it's multiplayer, but with more of a feeling like my actions actually matter. That would be a huge improvement, because right now, win or lose a Titanfall campaign, and ultimately, it makes no difference. The outcome plays out the same, so it doesn't matter whether my team wins the match. It could very well be that the story is moved on from the loser's point of view in a positive way. What? That is so unbelievably useless, I don't even know where to begin. Something like that. And again, this comes back to the things I was saying during our beta preview. These were the things I was really concerned about, that if it was just a tacked on story effectively, then it falls way short of what is actually required if you're going to do a multiplayer only game with a campaign. You still have to have a viable story there that has that element of immersion. Okay, so coming back to the graphics, and especially the animation system in Titanfall, definitely needs to be called out for special attention because it's beautifully well done. If I was to kind of point to one thing in Titanfall I would say is truly next gen, that is the animation system. The way that the pilot interacts with the Titan and Titans interact with each other, and also, you know, pilots and AI on the map, is just glorious. It feels beautifully executed. The graphics-wise, things are really good here. Sharp, detailed textures, but the colour palette can feel a little muted at times, which in part can be taken from the fact that we're planet hopping to lots of different environments. But again, the kind of cold, hard future thing, a little bit dull and stale at times. Unfortunately, for my mind, Angel City is probably the most beautiful looking map with the widest range of colour palette. But that's not to say that the other maps don't stand out on their own as well. Certainly the one with all of the, I think they're pterodactyls or petrodactyls flying around, is a really well-designed map. However, it does seem to be the map that suffers with the greatest level of frame rate issues as well. Some optimization there may be needed. Overall, Titanfall is a fantastic game on both platforms, but just bear in mind that if you're looking for the one with the smoothest frame rate, right now, with a medium quality PC, medium spec PC, the PC edition of the game is by far the one to be playing if you're looking for 1080p at a solid 60 frames a second. If you're obviously looking to really crank the handle and you're looking for that 120 frames per second gameplay, again, PC is definitely where it's going to be at.